Hi everybody, I'm Tony E at Show IP Interface Brief, and I'm back here on my 100 Days of Labbing, day 33, everybody. 33 is a big number. We are 1/3 of the way through the journey, or into the journey. I can't say through it because I don't actually know when it will end. I started this journey to just make the commitment of labbing well, I was going to say labbing every day, but it's not labbing every day. Rather, it's just trying to make labbing worthwhile and to stick with it. I can't just say that, hey, I want to try and make a pass at the CCIE lab exam by the end of the year. I actually want to be able to provide some metrics on my own performance. And the only way for me to do that is to hold myself to a sort of a rigorous standard, I guess, and schedule. I'm a procrastinator and someone who likes to put things off to the absolute end and then stay up all night just hacking away. That's how I get things done, and that is not the right approach for a marathon, right? And that's what the CCIE is. It's a marathon. It's a marathon for me. Maybe some folks can actually get through it quickly. But for me, it is a marathon and it is a long journey. And the only way I can make that journey is by starting this 100 Days of Labbing and measuring myself throughout the journey. So here we are 1/3 of the way through it. And if anyone is labbing along with me, congratulations, guys, to anyone who's out there pulling off 100 days of anything. I've seen some other hashtags out there on Twitter, 100 days of InfoSec, 100 days of coding, 100 days of this, 100 days of that. That's great. If anyone can stick with 100 days, it is something that is pretty tough to do. So I've taken many days off since I started, but I'm going to finish the 100 days. So anyhow, so tonight's lab was pretty good. Actually, I wanted to say that yesterday I did a small lab of my own topology, and I don't know, I was having some trouble getting my topology to work, and not the topology loaded in Eve or anything, just my configs were something that I'm very comfortable with that I should know very well by now, which is DMVPN. Anyone who's been following my journey knows that I throw DMVPN in everything. And DMVPN wasn't working yesterday, and I just feel like I felt so defeated, you know, like I took a week off of 100 days of labbing essentially due to work and personal life and stuff like that. But I made the commitment. I said Monday night, which was yesterday, I'm going to get back into it. And so I did yesterday, and I essentially failed my own lab, which was just like 2 requirements. And it was really defeating to know how hard I've worked and how far I've come so far in this journey that I couldn't even stand up something small. Now, I didn't go back to that lab today. Instead, that lab incorporated a couple of routers, a couple of switches, and so the way I was reading the error messages, it looked like a layer 2 issue, maybe an MTU issue, but there shouldn't have been, and I couldn't identify it. So today I kind of just omitted the switches and just connected everything to a central hub in EVE-NG, a bunch of routers, and just built my topology that I was working on yesterday. Everything seemed to be working fine. So, and you know what? It always feels like a defeat when you're failing, but when you succeed the next day, man, it's really a growing experience. And it's really hard to look at failure when you're failing as a growing experience. But it's easy to look back in the timeline and go, you know what happened yesterday was a growing experience. So that's the way I'm looking at it now, and I hope I can pass that on to everybody else. Anytime you fail and you feel defeated, it's really hard to look at the glass half full at that time. I know it is. But if you give yourself some time, you can look back and go, you know what, I've grown from this. This is something I can learn from, and it's not going to keep me down. And when I started tonight, I was actually feeling rather depressed tonight. My schedule's off. My home life schedule is a little off, and my labbing schedule is a little off, and I couldn't do a simple lab yesterday, and I'm just not in my groove. I got to get back in the groove. And so I wasn't even really sure I wanted to lab tonight. So I came down here and sat down in front of the computer, and I forced myself to do a lab. I actually forced myself. I didn't even want to. I just wanted to just go upstairs and just get in bed and just start life over again tomorrow. But I forced myself to do a lab. And you know what? I am so happy I did that because I love networking. Because when a lab works, when a topology works, when you learn something new, it's exciting. And if I didn't sit down here and push myself through it, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to learn something new. So there were a couple of things that didn't work in my topology that I had to research and read and troubleshoot. And that is one thing. When you get stuck on something, do the research. And here's what I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to try and hold myself to this standard. Don't stop reading until you learn something new. Okay? Too often when there's an issue or a problem with something, I'll go to a search engine, look it up, find an answer, especially with Cisco and Juniper problems, you know, the two biggest networking companies in the world. There's a lot of help out there for them. So it's really easy just to grab an answer and throw it in and see it work and just and move on. But what I want to try to do is actually take a step back and do some more reading. Try to understand why is it working. Not just how to make it work, why is it working? And don't stop reading until I learn something new. And that's what I did tonight. I was having some issue with site-to-site IPSEC over a, site-to-site tunnel, IPSEC tunnel, which I don't really do very often, as a matter of fact. Believe it or not, I actually, was just hand jamming it in, and it just wasn't very familiar. A lot of that configuration set overlaps with all of my work that I've done in DMVPN and doing DMVPN with encryption. But it's just a little bit different, that's all. The tunnel mode is different, and I'm trying to think what else. Typically, we don't use a wildcard for the address for the key value. So I thought that was interesting. Also, I went ahead and did. Let's see if I can just show right here. If I can just pull up a router. Sure, I'll do router 4. So I just kind of wanted to know what are the defaults for a crypto ISACamp policy. What are the defaults? So if you just get into config T and you do crypto ISACamp policy and call this 20, enter. And I don't enter any information here. Typically you would do authentication pre-share, you would set the encryption, you would do the hash, and you would do the group. Typically, it's going to be those 4 items or a combination of some of those 4 items. But what happens if you just hit exit? What does it give you as the default? That's what I wanted to know. It was one of the things I learned tonight. So if I do a do show run all and then begin with this line, or if we do section. See, it sets, and I don't know if this is iOS specific or not. So I'm going to try it, I guess, on a couple of different versions. But it sets the encryption as DES, hash is SHA, authentication is RSA signature, and Diffie-Hellman group 1, and sets the lifetime value. That's all done by default. I didn't enter any of that in. So I thought that was interesting. So the whole purpose of why I did IPSEC tonight, along with DMVPN, separately. I did DMVPN by itself. I did IPSEC in another part of a topology, and then I did LDP authentication for MPLS. The reason I did that is I was kind of getting back into the groove of reviewing my INE lab results, which I took now 2 weeks ago, right? I did the INE Foundation Lab 3. There were a couple of elements on there that I just blanked out on, and one of those was, if I'm trying to find the paper, was site-to-site VPN, IPSEC. It was actually over IPv6 transport, but the configurations are almost identical. So I just absolutely drew a blank. And the reason is when I think site to site, I think crypto maps. And I was just getting lost. It is the last task in the lab. And I think at that time, my brain was just fried and I wasn't computing. So, so I went ahead and looked at the answer key just to go ahead and get an idea for what they were looking for. So again, part of the reason why I go through these labs and try to read them as often as I can is because I want to get used to the terminology, right? When there's a requirement that asks something very specific. Now, I know the INE lab is not the CCIE lab, but just getting used to sort of reading requirements, deciphering them in your head, and sort of mapping out exactly what you need to do is an exercise itself. And I want to make sure I exercise that part of my mind, that part of my brain, in getting ready for these labs. And the IPSEC one, so I just kind of want to make sure I know how to configure IPSEC or site-to-site encryption, sort of every way that can be. So, and there's sort of a few different ways to accomplish that, which is why I don't think I was able to figure out what exactly they wanted. I think the key word there was VTI, Virtual Tunnel Interface, but I can think there's another way to do that. Anyhow, so I was going back to DMVPN. I don't know if you can see here. I made some notes on my whiteboard. I have a whole bunch of OSPF stuff here. I'm thinking about doing a little OSPF video specifically on OSPF and DMVPN. Maybe just an intro or basic or foundations level just to get people used to using and comfortable with OSPF and DMVPN, and to get myself 100% comfortable with it because of the different link types or I guess it's called network types. Because of the network types you can apply to the links or to the tunnel interface really affects how OSPF operates. And I don't think I just sat down and explored every possibility. But tonight I did. That was one of the things I did. I did the DMVPN tunnels, and I ran through every permeation of OSPF network type combination there could be, and sort of what's required and how that affects things like the routing table and the OSPF database and stuff like that. And then with and without NHRP redirects and shortcuts. Also set up MPLS with LDP authentication, which is pretty basic. A couple of lines it takes to turn the whole thing on. But it has been a requirement on the past 2 INE Foundation labs, and it's just something I wasn't familiar with. And it was just a little foreign, but again, it's not much to remember, but when something's new, it's hard. Even if it's easy, when something new, it's hard. So I'm trying to make it not new. I'm trying to make it just something old that we just do all the time now. So that's what I'm going with. I really like slamming out DMVPN and IPSEC as regularly as possible because those config sets are some of the largest I think I'll have to deal with at any one time. Another one is probably multi-protocol BGP. And again with VPN v4. That's a pretty big config set too. It can be small, but typically it's going to be larger because you have to create VPNs. You got PE to CE routing. You get the VPN v4 routing. It could be IPv6, all the different address families, and there's a lot that can go into it. And before you know it, you got a big config set. And I want to be able to just spit that out quickly. I don't have to want to think about it in the lab or take up too much time. I want to have that muscle memory kick in. So that's really just what I'm working on, and I'm trying to get myself back in the groove, guys. I told you when I started tonight, I was a little bit depressed. I'm so happy I forced myself to work through a lab because now I feel good about it. I feel good that I learned something. I feel good that I was successful. I feel good that the lab worked. If the lab didn't work tonight and it failed, this would be a very different vlog. But because things were successful and I came in sort of in a sour attitude, I was happy to see that this sort of thing picks me up, and it picks me up because I love it. I absolutely love this. Another thing I wanted to share I've been asked recently, as a comment on a YouTube video, as well as people always ask us in the Discord channel. If anyone wants to join the Land Tamers Discord channel, I refresh the link every time I post one of these videos. The link is good for 24 hours. We just kind of have a 24-hour time limit on it to stop bots from automatically joining the network. And we always get asked in there, hey, what labs are you doing, or where do you get your labs from, or hey, I'm working on CCNA or CCNP or service provider, or where can I get labs or anything like that. Labs are abundant. They're everywhere. In fact, within the Land Tamer Discord, someone posted a whole bunch of stuff from a woman over at the Cisco Learning Network, which is a link I don't have at the ready right now. Which posted an awesome lab I shared on stream yesterday. Really awesome lab. I haven't done it yet, but it looks really fun. There was this resource that many years ago I had saw as sort of an up-and-coming website. It didn't have much to it at the time, but now it has a whole bunch of stuff. So this is the freeccnaworkbook.com. Okay, so you can go over here to workbooks, do your CCNA routing and switching link. And here are tons of labs. For anyone doing your CCNA, any labs are going to be useful. I mean, you can grab any CCNA book. I think they're probably going to have labs in it. Let's see, this one is Catalyst series switches, wide area networks, static routing, RIP routing, EIGRP. Let's just take a look at some of these labs. Okay, it gives you a little topology. Looks like it's a GNS3. Looks like here's some configs you can copy and paste. I mean, I haven't worked through this. I haven't vetted it myself, but any resource is better than no resource. And this looks like it's pretty comprehensive. Looks like it goes over a lot for the CCNA. So that's going to be my recommendation at the moment until someone tells me otherwise. But there's tons and tons and tons of stuff out there. I like this because it's free and open and you don't have to create an account to get it. So I think that's it. Again, I'm going to try and keep things on the brief side. I was trying to schedule my troubleshooting, my INE. People who have been following me for a while know that I've been working through the INE workbook, and I'm entering the troubleshooting labs in the back of the workbook. So troubleshooting lab 1 was one of the reasons I stood up my EVE-NG in the cloud. I did import that topology. I had some issues starting the images, so I need to go back and take a look at the startup configs and see if there's an issue there. But I'm looking at maybe planning on doing the troubleshooting topology this Sunday. So if anyone wants to lab with me this Sunday, that would be great. I'm sorry, I keep my schedules flip-flopping around. It's Saturday or Sunday, and I think after this holiday here in the U.S., which is Labor Day, I believe, I'll probably be hitting Sundays regularly. But this upcoming weekend, which will be August 26th, I'm going to try and do the troubleshooting lab. But anyone wants to follow me on Twitter or check the YouTube channel, I'll probably be updating on Thursday or Friday whether or not I'm going to execute that lab. I don't actually feel that I'm ready, and I don't want to waste my time and waste anybody else's time. And I certainly just don't want to go do a lab just to fail it, because if you do a lab twice, you see the material twice, and it stops becoming a challenge. It stops becoming a learning experience and becomes a what did I do last time kind of experience. And I don't want to do that. I really enjoy the materials that INE's put together. I really enjoy the labs. And so I want to make sure that when I'm ready to do it, I can execute it and really evaluate myself, really grade myself. Because I did that, I took the Foundation Lab 3, I took it twice. And on the second time, I found myself asking myself, what did I do last time, instead of trying to solve it again a second time? And it's just hard. It's just human nature, you know. Once you've done something once, you just try to remember how did I do it that time? And it's difficult to treat something like it's new when you've seen it twice. So I might do it this weekend. I might put it off. Stay tuned and we'll see. That's all I got for today, guys. Thanks for all the great feedback. I really appreciate it. And man, I'm pumped. I'm ready to go. We are a third of the way through the journey. I can't wait to reach 50. I tell you what, though, I'm actually really nervous. I'm nervous about the fact that I'm a third of the way through my journey. And I guess I don't know what I expected out of myself, but I expected, I think, to be further along than I am. I feel like I'm still starting my journey, and not that I'm a third of the way. I feel like I'm still at the beginning. So I'm a little nervous. I'm a little nervous that the 100 days is going to creep right up on me, and then I'm going to have to make a decision on whether or not I'm ready and how to be ready to take the CCIE lab exam, and what will my next steps be. And if I had to look down the timeline to the 100-day mark as of right now and say, where do I see myself in 100 days? I'll say I'm probably not ready. I'm probably not ready, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop my journey. It means I'm going to keep going and evaluate myself at the end. I can tell you what, so far I've learned a great deal of things over the last 33 days. And so it has been a positive experience, and I look forward to learning a lot more. So thank you all for joining me, and see ya.